Supplemental.
Where's the attorney? When you know there's one. Oh, yeah, that's all.
Supplemental. He's actually a vendor. They send them out. They're like crack dealers. Hey, there's a pen behind me. Thank you. More money, more.
That was actually quite educational just then.
Okay, it is 1 after 1, so it's time to get started. First off, I need to get an approval of the minutes for the January 25th and the March 22nd meetings. Can I get a motion? Thank you, Betty. A second, Steve. Any updates or corrections to either of those? Nope. All those in favor of the minutes as they appear in the packet, please state aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next, we have informational items. The first is PCAPs. Is Becky? Oh, okay.
Questions I can try to answer.
Any questions about the report? I did notice there's a quite a big uptick from last year at this time. I'm assuming that has something to do with COVID, but they're much more busy now than they were last year.
Sure, I think we were still under the stay-at-home order.
Right. Okay.
A controlled environment.
Sure. Okay, Betty. She asked what it means, the transport.
The
Transfer.
transfers.
Okay.
So, is this on? I'm sorry, I can't tell. Okay. So, we do we have a foster care program, and so we can transfer animals out of the shelter into the foster homes. They're still available for adoption, but it just puts them in a little bit of a more home-like environment with those foster families. We also do some interagency transfers. If there's a shelter, maybe we have too many dogs, and there's a shelter that maybe is a little low on dogs for adoption, then there are times where we have some sharing agreements in an effort to free up space. We've not had to do that lower, but that is just a couple examples of what that would be.
There's also breed-specific rescue. So if it's a certain breed of dog and there's a rescue organization within the region, they'll transfer it out to that breed rescue.
Thank you. Next is our workforce report.
Right. That's on page 7 of the packet, Mr. Chairman. So just top, as always, top third is kind of what applicants and hires look like for the month of March. Again, just as a reminder, hires are those that were made during the month of March. That doesn't necessarily mean the position was posted in the month of March, as some positions take more than 30 days to actually fill. You can see the numbers in comparison to last year. We actually had 17 hires last year and only 9 this year during the month of March. That despite the stay-at-home order from a year ago, that was a significant change in activity for PCAPs. We still were required to continue delivering services, as you can see, based on those transactions. Middle third of the page is gender, race, ethnicity, demographics of the workforce. Bottom third deals with separations in terms of how many we had separate during the last month, and it tracks it year to date and also against last year. Just a quick note about the race ethnicity of our workforce and what the strategy is there. We do have a couple of things. First of all, we've become members of a national organization. Its acronym is GARE, G-A-R-E, and it's the Government Alliance for Race and Equity. The city of Peoria is a member. Many large jurisdictions where this is an important issue are members. That membership opens up opportunities for some paid technical assistance, paid training opportunities that for a fee we can then open up to all of our team members. So that's one item. Second item is Mayor-elect Ali has provided outgoing mayor Artis, the city manager, the county board chairman, and myself a list of appointments for the Joint Commission on Race and Equity and the subcommittees. We need to go back and look at the charter to see just exactly what the county board and the city council will be voting on from an appointment standpoint. If memory serves, it's just the commission itself and not the subcommittees, but we need to go back and read the charter to double check that. And so I would expect that list to be on the list of appointments for the May County Board meeting. And then we'll start the work of the commission, and then staffing the commission, and then see where that goes. And so, happy to answer any questions from yourself or the committee members.
Any questions, Steve?
On the new hire section, do we have any metrics on our fill rate of open positions? Are we, I guess in general question is, how are we doing at being able to successfully fill openings? I
think great question. That's going to vary by position. Just one short anecdote for you. We'll be talking about a member of the facilities team whose last day is this Friday of this week, who's been a long-term employee. He gave us notice 60 days ago, so 2 months ago. We posted it within a week of him giving the notice, and we had one applicant who we offered a position to. That person declined and used our offer to get better compensation from his current employer. And we have one internal applicant that we're evaluating, and that is it. That position, the starting wage is roughly in the low mid $30,000 a year range. The sheriff can speak to the number, the almost now non-existent applicant pool he has for correctional officers. And so I think those are just two short, quick anecdotes where we're having a hard time finding, not just qualified persons, but just persons in general to be applying for the vacancies that we do have.
Okay, well, thank you for the update. I mean, I assume that we had some of the same challenges as our community has at finding employees and bringing on employees. So I guess looking forward, we may have to start looking at what kind of actions do we need to put in place so we can qualify and staff our operations appropriately. So don't have an answer, just something that we'll probably need to look at.
Absolutely. And the sheriff's being proactive as it relates to correctional officers. He's got some flexibility to do that. The other positions where we're maybe having some challenges, and those are two that I just specifically know about myself. They're highly likely there are others. Within collective bargaining restrictions, we'll see, obviously we'll see what we can do to try and make it more attractive for folks to apply for positions and to get hired on, so we can fill those positions.
Any other questions on the workforce report? All right. And the last report is liability and workers' compensation report.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Page 8 in your packet. Liability claims are across the top. Work comp claims are across the bottom. You can see top left number of claims. We've got 5 open claims right now. Some of those may be current year. Some of those may be holdovers from prior years. In fact, we've got 1 open from 2019 and 1 open from 2020 still. And you can see that there's 2 from 2016, 3 from 17, and 4 cases still open from 2018, and then 5 in the current year. And then in terms of liabilities, in 2016 we still have a pretty decent reserve remaining, and 21 we've got a pretty small reserve at this point, but we haven't paid anything out to date on those 5 claims. Work comp across the bottom, we've 13 of the 18 cases this year are still active. Very few are still active from prior years, and you can see in the bottom right what the reserve is versus paid out to date. Shauna, Angela, or myself are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any questions? Nope. Okay, thank you, Scott. All right, next we have a discussion item, the Enterprise Resource Planning System, and I think it's just to get an update on that. Mark?
Right. So I'm going to start this, and then Mark's going to fill in any holes that I accidentally leave out of the summary. So this is a project that we've actually been saving for 6 years. Those savings are accumulated in the fund balance of the IT service fund. This project will replace Pentimation. It will replace our time and attendance and time clock system, and it potentially will replace our cashiering system as well. So that means it's everything from general ledger and the banking side to the finance and audit side to HR and hiring and onboarding and fixed assets and payroll and everything that goes with benefit administration as well. So very all-encompassing, very touching almost every single sector of the organization. A year ago, you awarded a contract through an RFP process to a company called Barry Dunn. They're headquartered in Portland, Maine, to be our project management consultant, because this is a project of size and scope that we needed outside expertise to assist us with. And the reason why we're actually moving down this path is that Pentimation will no longer be supported come June of next year. And Pentimation is the way it was programmed and the way it continues to be updated has to be run on Internet Explorer because it requires a Microsoft Silverlight. And Microsoft is stopping support of Silverlight this fall. So as Microsoft moves to its new internet browser, Edge. Whether we wanted to continue using it or not, we're not going to have support for it much longer. And we knew that going in, and that's why we started the project when we did. We assembled, along with Barry Dunn, an internal executive steering committee that includes myself, it includes the chief financial officer, it includes Mark as the CIO, and then it includes the treasurer and chief deputy Gay from the elected offices. We're the ones that make decisions internally and then forward the recommendation to you when it requires a policy-making decision. We have out on the street right now an RFP for the actual software itself, and those responses have come back in. We had 7 responses overall. The initial review had 6 of them being meeting the minimum qualifications, so one did not, and so we rejected that one, and then we evaluated those 6 and determined that 2 of those 6 were the most qualified and were finalists, and we did software demonstrations, and we did those electronically and virtually using Microsoft Teams. And we had, each vendor had 2.5 days, 2.5 full days, where we actually had each component of the software was demoed, so it wasn't nonstop for 2.5 days, but it was somewhere in the excess of 40 or 50 individual sessions over the entire week, split between the 2 vendors. We had roughly 30 or so subject matter experts from across the entire organization get invited and participate in those vendor demonstrations, and then those subject matter experts evaluated and scored the two vendors without knowing any references and without knowing price. So purely on the merits and the quality of the product, the software product itself. The Executive Steering Committee did the same. Barry Dunn did not share with us until after the Executive Steering Committee had done its homework to see just what the subject matter experts had done. And I was pleasantly surprised that the subject matter experts in the Executive Steering Committee, after comparing the 2, scored the 2 vendors roughly the same. So the top vendor that of the 2, we have commenced with background checks, which and reference checks, which means that Mark is talking to counties that have installed that software. There's, I think, 4 that we're checking. 1 from Ohio, 2 from Illinois, and the 3rd one, drawing a blank on which state, the
Michigan.
4th, Michigan, thank you. So the 4th and final one being from Michigan, to try and get a sense of just exactly what the product is from an actual user standpoint, and how their implementation went. At the same time, we're also evaluating the cost proposal. The cost proposal for the preferred vendor is 31 pages long and has a multitude of options to select from. We will be bringing to you and then to also the Finance Committee a total of 3 resolutions. The first will be a contract award recommendation for the software vendor. The second will be a contract modification to our engagement with Barry Dunn, so that they will continue to be the project manager through implementation and go live, which will be in June of next year. And the third will be to create a capital project fund, and then to move money from the reserves of the IT services fund that we've been saving and move it into that capital project fund, and that's where we will pay for all the services that will be necessary for this project during its life. We asked for this to be done as a software as a service, which means that it's entirely in the cloud. We won't be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on IT hardware and servers that'll be in the IT room in the basement or in the ground floor here. Everything will be out in the cloud. And the preferred vendor right now works in the same Microsoft Azure cloud that we do. So that is, from a security standpoint, both Mark and I feel very comfortable about that. Once the process, once the bid is awarded, then we'll go ahead and obviously start getting contracts finalized, and we'll start down the path of implementation. It will require a significant amount of work on the entire organization. I think all the subject matter experts that we've talked to in the organization, they are aware of what's coming. The appointed and elected department heads and officials know what's coming. I think the folks that use the finance system every day are actually eagerly anticipating this. We're ready for a product that can do so much more. I think in part of the discussion when the Executive Steering Committee was doing its evaluation, Randy said that we thought Penimation was pretty decent, but after seeing the two vendor demonstrations, it's night and day difference between where we're at today and where we could be with new software in terms of how we manage the day-to-day operations of the organizations from a back-end perspective. The cost will will include an installation cost. It'll include a 10-year contract for updates and security patches. There will be some peripheral type hardware that we'll need to buy, so scanners and whatnot, but no big server expenditure or anything like that. Mark, did I leave anything out?
No, I think you covered everything very well. You went through my talking.
So the key point, Mr. Chairman, is we want to keep this on schedule and on task. And so I'm going to ask that the committee have a committee meeting the day of the May board meeting. We want to try and get this to the May board and continue down the path towards meeting that go live deadline that we have of a little bit more than a year from now. So we're happy to answer any questions and try and provide any more detail that the committee might have or might ask of today, and would ask that we have that special committee meeting on I believe it's the 13th.
Okay, I know he dropped a lot of information to digest. I thought since we were having a little bit of discussion today, if anybody has some questions, ask them today. We might even be able to do a poll vote rather than have a special committee meeting.
Yeah, that'd be fine as well.
Could do that. So if anybody is against doing a poll vote and would rather have a committee meeting, we can consider that also. Kate, do you have a question?
I was just, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. I'll go after you.
I was just wondering if, I'm assuming that there's going to be some efficiencies gained by having a new system. I was wondering if there's been any estimates or of
Great question,
time
Kate.
saved.
So part of Barry Dunn's or first phase work leading up to the drafting of the RFP and was to look at and to process map all of our existing processes, and then to look at where some efficiencies can be drawn and to identify improvements to each one of those workflows. And that work will continue once the vendor is selected, because the software itself will have some bearing on some of those processes. So there hasn't been anything specifically put to paper in terms of what those efficiencies look like, but that is a detailed component of the scope of work. And I think I've made it really clear to the Executive Steering Committee, and we've made it clear to the subject matter experts that just because we've been doing a process for the last 20 years doesn't mean it's the most efficient way, and that doesn't mean that's the way we're going to continue to do it with the new software. If the software has efficiencies built into it to make us more streamlined and more efficient, then we're going to take advantage of those opportunities.
So will you at some point have a number? I'm just curious if this is going to end up paying for itself through the efficiencies gained.
It's over 10 years. It's a $3+ million project. We're talking $350,000 to $400,000 a year. We will see efficiencies, but I doubt we're going to see $400,000 a year in efficiencies. That's a pretty steep number.
One thing we have recognized as we've been going through the process is we're doing a lot of things on Excel. And one of the counties I've talked to said they had a scorecard that they kept on the number of Excel spreadsheets that they got rid of as they went through the process. Because I think there's a lot of data. There's things done in Penimation, it's brought out of Penimation, put in a spreadsheet, data manipulated, and then manually put back in Penimation across the organization that we're all not, we really don't realize goes on day to day. I know if you go back when we done criminal justice system, we uncovered just lots of stuff as we dug into those processes. And so that'll all get uncovered as we dig into building the new system and going through those processes, that we'll be able to find and identify a lot of those. And it's something we tracked with Odyssey, and it's something we'll track here too, is all those things we got rid of. So.
Now, other than replacing the current systems, is there any current system that it will integrate with?
Yeah, it integrates across the board with a lot of our systems. That's one of the challenges. How do we integrate? We'll integrate with Odyssey. We'll integrate with InterGov. We'll integrate anything where we have dollars coming in. There'll be integrations within those pieces. So that's another piece we're going to look at is do we standardize on cashiering across the county? Right now, each individual system has its own cashiering piece, and then those flows across. Part of this system, one of the things we can look at is standardizing that across all offices, everything, so we run a single cashiering program, and then those will interface. It's part of the project and something we need to look at as once we get a contract signed and moving forward. So,
As far as cashiering, does that include bringing money in, like credit card payments? So is this something then that PCAPs could potentially use since they
something we're
don't have
looking
that?
to work with the treasurer on because she's our cashiering expert. And so, we're glad to have her on the team. So it's on our list of something we need to discuss and look at. We have it budgeted in the project as we move forward, and our hope is that as I've been talking to resources, other counties, we did an hour-and-a-half call with the county on Friday afternoon, long call, and we had a great deal of discussion about cashiering and how they did it, and they're a county that's 3 times our size. And so all that information is very valuable. Matter of fact, we have contacts now within that county that we can talk to. So, yes, more we can get out there and talk to other people. One thing about ERP, it's not new technology. It's very mature software. It's been around 20, 30 years. The vendor we're looking at, their oldest install in the state is 20 years old. So it's not new. So there's a lot of people out there we can talk to and look at best practices and what's worked and what hasn't worked. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Any other questions?
Yes,
Yes,
I
Betty?
have one. In regards to the maintenance of it, how much will be required, or has it been determined from IT how much site management would be required? Have we determined that yet?
Well, one of the things that makes the hosted system a little different than what we're used to today is that we're running software that is managed by somebody else. They will handle all the patches, all the security, all those people. We will assign a resource, which we have today, who will handle the go-between between our users and that vendor, and we'll have a single person. We will not add any additional resources required to support it. Matter of fact, it should take less time, is our hope. So.
And do you know if there's a problem with one part of the system, does the whole system come down, or is it application-based where other parts will
There's
work?
probably different modules within that. There will be details within the contract that will follow uptime. As we all know, nothing's 100%. If you've listened to the news this weekend, what's happened in town. So we try to avoid all those, and we schedule downtimes for any of our systems, especially SaaS. SaaS is a little more out of your control, software as a service, but still, they're in the business to do that, and when they have issues, that affects all their customers. So we have found in our existing SaaS environments that we had, we ran our medical records through the nursing home, was all SaaS-based, and was very successful, very secure. So I've always said I feel much better from a security and uptime standpoint having someone else who does that and manage that than us here, because I don't have the staff to that degree or the millions of dollars to protect that. So I'm very confident that it's the right way to go. So.
Yes, Kate?
Sorry, one more question. Because it is managed outside of our organization, are there any additional risks for our security?
Actually, I think we're at less risk for security. Like I said, we have limited budget. I have limited staff. I have limited people. I think we do a good job at securing, but for billion-dollar organizations that host thousands of customers across the country, that's the business they're in. That's what they do, and I'm very confident from a security standpoint.
I'm just wondering because there's a few organizations that I know who have been hacked recently. That there's a community college that a friend of mine works for. It was hacked and they were down for 3 weeks, and it's something that I know that you guys have really done a good job at for us in the past, and I just didn't know if this was changing that that dynamic?
It's you know, it's a risk that's there every day. It's the thing that I worry about all the time, but we can prepare for it. Matter of fact, we're getting ready to kick off another project, which will be that has to do with how do we respond to that. That's a project we're working on right now. We're working with the state's attorneys on the details of that. But you know, there's pluses and minuses of both, and the trend and the way we're designing infrastructure and the way we're designing security is from that hosted side. As you guys talked about earlier, it's more difficult to find employees and staff and folks, and if we can offload that hosting side of that, that's less expensive and staff we have to have on our end to take care of that. So.
Okay. Sure, Steve.
I've got two items. First one's a comment. Just I think the software as a service has a lot of benefits and kind of addresses Scott's comments of the night to day difference between pentimation and what you're going to. Hopefully having a software as a service will keep us more current in what we have available and offering or the capability of the system. Yeah, but the question I have is, do we have a business analytics module available in this? So as we work through it within the system, not outside in Excel, but an analytics tool that we can manage and actually use that to run the business.
I will say there is a piece within the system. I can't reveal the name of the vendor at the point, but yes, there is some very good data analytics type stuff that'll be able to give that information. Plus, there's a lot of dashboards built within the system for managers, depending on how you log into the system, that gives you real-time data, how your department's functioning, how, you know, all those types of things. So there's that type of information there. As long as, you know, like anything, as long as we could collect it, we can present it to you. So as long as the data's there, so.
And I'd assume that there, you know, current vendors have that capability. Again, it's one thing to collect it and have data in a system, but if you struggle to use the data and you have to go to Excel and do a bunch of manual analytics, it's a challenge. And in today's environment, if you don't have something that does analytic capability built in, dashboards and such, I would say that's a concern if you don't have that capability that really meets what you're looking for.
I feel confident that that capability is there and we'll utilize that.
Any other questions? I'm sure if you have questions once you see the resolution, you can reach out to Mark or Scott. Does everybody feel okay with the poll vote when you see this?
Just for the, I guess, the benefit, the poll vote, the scope of the poll vote, maybe you could articulate this so we know how to answer that question.
Sure.
Sure. So there'll be two resolutions for this committee on the poll vote. The first is the contract award for the software itself, and the second is to execute phase 2 of the scope of work for Barry Dunn for project management services, which you already have under contract. We had done the RFP, and we awarded contract to one vendor, but we only awarded one phase, knowing that there likely would be a second phase, but weren't sure. And then Finance Committee will have the financial component of it, which is creating a new capital project fund and then moving dollars from the reserves of the IT fund into that capital project fund.
Okay. Anything, Junior? You're good? Okay. All right. Now I need a motion to go into a closed session for the purpose of labor relations. Thank you, Junior. Can I get a second? Steve, thank you. All those in favor, please state aye.